Okay, I got a fantastic suggestion to do a video on the erosion of the Ghats mountain range on western India. Now, this is a mountain range that is full of incredible erosion, but before I show you it, just want to do a little background on the plate tectonics and the geology. So, the mountain range is a strip right along the coastline. And if we look at the geological map, we find a large portion is igneous and a large portion is metamorphic. Now, how did these rocks get moved up there? Well, our answer is when we look at this ridge line here. This is a place of seafloor spreading. But it's not just a place of not just a place of seafloor spreading, but this is actually a mountain range that's 6,000 feet in elevation. So if you go over here, it's almost perfectly flat, as well as over here. But all of this was buckled, even though it was spread apart and drifted away. So this mountain range here of seafloor spreading is responsible for the theory that Madagascar and India were once very close to each other, maybe even touching. I don't know how certain you can be of how close they were, but no doubt they spread apart somewhat from this feature of seafloor spreading here. Rift Valley, you could call it. Okay? Now, under the tectonic forces of this seafloor spreading, that's what's responsible for this uplifted and buckled range called the Ghats. Now, let's take a look at the Ghats mountain range through my special location of pins. Now, 4T, what does that mean? 4 terraces. Okay, this land is full of river terraces. So let's just start at the bottom here. This would be the bottom terrace. We'll call that 0. This is 1. Okay, we go over here. This is 1 again. 2, 3, 4. We look at how it's perfectly flat. This is a perfect example of cliff and terrace step sequences. And it's a perfect example of river terraces being way higher than they should be. Okay, now this is like the Grand Canyon. I'll explain that later, but we can actually keep going and see that it's not just, this location, it's 4 terraces, but we can keep going. Well, this is number 5. Call this number 6. 7 and 8. So there's actually a lot more terraces. You just keep going up. So this is a location that's terraced to the summit. So you can go to the highest point of this mountain range and it's still going to be terraced all the way up to the summit. Now, let's keep looking and see how this river, just like the Grand Canyon, has powerful meanders. This is from a lot of inertia and a lot of centripetal force to make these. And that's exactly where the terraces line up with. So this is a great indication of it being a river terrace because it fits so well with the massive curves of the riverbed. Now we keep going, and we are continually impressed. That's almost wanting to cut through to make an oxbow. So yeah, gotta love these terraces. Now, what do the scientists call these terraces? Well, they don't call them terraces, they call them traps, which in Swedish means steps. Now, these are not considered steps because of a water current forming them. as a cliff and terrace step sequence. Instead, let's play this.
Traps.
In Swedish, stairs are traps. It's now a geological term. And the consensus perspective is that the reason why you get these stairs is because of mafic flows. So all of this, we already know that looking at the geology of it, we see it's igneous rock. So what happened was, under their perspective, this igneous rock erupted and was laid down flat, law of original horizontality, and then another layer of igneous rock was laid down in another thick area, and this continued. And then differential erosion caused the stairs. Okay, so that's how you can understand these features if you don't want to call them river terraces. And you should do that. You should consider that theory at least. But you should also consider that they look a lot like river terraces. And this whole area is full of powerful rivers and riverbeds. And you can just, go anywhere really and find this feature. And another thing we also find are these lines that cut across. Now that's a clue that I'm going to talk about later in the video, so you got to stick around for that. I'm just teasing you with it right now. So how did these parallel ruts form? Okay, but let's go to this spot here. Why is it called pot? Well, it's full of potholes. Potholes are a feature of water turbulence and a type of erosion made from high-speed water vortices. Okay, so let's take a look at this very location. This video is kind of fast, but you can see it's full of potholes. And this is a very highly eroded area. This looks just like a place in South Africa. But there are features like this in Thailand, the Washington Scablands, Canada has a lot of features like this, even the Sierra Nevadas. Okay, so all of these were carved out from water vortices. So just imagine how catastrophic this landscape is showing. It's absolutely incredible. I just want to pause it. That was a good spot here. All of these, this is a feature of a river bottom, right? And it's in a river, but man, this river was charging back in the day. And look at how it sculpted out this. You can find features like this around Niagara Falls too, uphill of Niagara Falls, of course. Yeah, so that's an awesome spot. So now we have potholes. So now we're getting more confirmation that we're dealing with a large amount of moving water. Okay, it's getting interesting. This right here, how did this form? Well, you look at how there's all these U-shapes around it. Why are there so many U-shapes? And then within the U-shapes, V-shapes. It's very interesting. Why is this? And then we also find more current ruts coming across here. Just like what we find in Arizona in that Grand Canyon as well. So what's up with the U-shapes and the pointed V-shapes? It's very interesting. So this was such a great suggestion. But I'm going to explain it to you so that you will understand I just want you guys to think about it for a little bit, and I just want you to soak in this terrain because there's a lot to cover, and the more areas you look at, the more you start to figure things out. And I think geology textbooks would be a lot more interesting and informational. They just had 50 pages per topic of evidence, at least, for theories, just not so to prove it, but just so you can get a grasp and a visual understanding of whatever they're talking about. So that's what I do on my channel. Anytime I mention a feature, I'll show you plenty of examples. Now, wow, this is a great spot here. How did this form? That's a great question. So when you find a U-shaped cut in a cliff edge, there's two main theories, or two main theories it's going to be. It's either going to be, let's say you're in the Washington Scablands, it'd be a cataract carved by a waterfall. But if you're in, area of higher latitude, such as Canada, you'd find a U shape in a cliff edge. You'd call that a cirque made from glacier erosion. Same feature. But we're here in India at 870 meters, and we find this feature. The width on it is almost 1.8 miles. So this would be massive compared to this Pothole Falls or Dry Falls, Washington. This would stand out as just as big, if not bigger, because that's a double cataract feature, but this is only a single. Now here's the thing. Why is this one a U-shaped with two V-shapes within it? Well, a river makes a V-shape, and a glacier supposedly makes a U-shape. So therefore, it's impossible for a glacier to have made this here. So therefore, it supports the theory that this was a cataract, and then you have the V shape within it. Now, I'm going to take you over to Colorado. Where should I go? And you can find nice round U shapes and then V shapes within it. This is the same type of feature. This is very shallow and very clearly terraced. This is not a feature of a glacier, but rather also, just like India, a feature of water. Okay. You can go here, rounded U shape, and then a pointed ravine going into it. So this was made by water, and then this could have been made by water or ice, but I'm leaning towards them both being made by water. Okay. Let's go here. Okay, same thing. We got the pointed ravines going right into rounded ravines. So this cataract, these cataracts with pointed ravines, aka sudden ravines, indicating that they're both from water flow. Now we can scoot up to Washington real quick. And this is, textbook cataract right here. Sudden ravines, pointed ravines going in to the U-shape cataract. You got the terraces, clearly river terraces, right? But there's not multiple steps in these cataracts, or is there? Well, there actually is. 1, 2, 3. See, you see the steps. 1, 2, 3. So there are terraces on these cataracts, very similar to India. This is Dry Falls, right? So I'm just getting you an idea for what they would consider a water carved U-shape cut, which they would call a cataract, right? And you've got, again, all of these parallel lines, very similar to what we saw in India. And we also see lines of mounds. So we're going to keep all of this in mind as we go back to India. So again, how did these form? Water or ice? Are these in fact massive cataracts? Where this is, 1.8 miles wide. And actually, let me just go back real quick just to give you a comparison of Washington's double cataract feature. Dry Falls, both of the, this is one of the greatest spots in Washington to visit. There's a parking lot right here, and when you stand here, blow your mind. I got some drone shots of it, but the feature is so big, it's hard to encapsulate the whole thing in one frame. I had to move the camera around. Kind of turned out a little shaky, but look at this. Both of these together, this is a double cataract feature. Both of them together is 1 mile, 1.04. Just a single cataract, 0.3-ish, or maybe a little more. Go to here, almost 0.4. That's for the single feature. This one you can see how there's another double within it, right? Let's go down to Potholes. And this single feature here, not even a mile. So Washington isn't even on the level of India. Okay, that's how great of a suggestion the Ghats mountain range is. And just the idea of looking at traps, quote unquote. I'm going to show you the Siberian traps. That's going to blow your mind. So you guys stick around for that. 1.4, double cataract. Okay. Back to India. So this spot here, one of my faves. Could this also be a cataract, right? Everywhere you go. Could this also be a cataract, right? So it's potentially everywhere. Now this right here reminds me of a place I went to near Chico called Table Mountain. Here we have a cataract, a third of the mile wide here, third of a mile wide here. And then a sudden ravine here, also a catastrophic feature from the same water current. We've got parallel ruts running across the table landscape, tabletop flat because it's a terrace, just like India is completely terraced, right? Let's press play, go in, see the very point. We're going to go right here. That's this spot here, and it's terraced. 1 terrace, 2 terrace. Detailed feature. Now look at this little tree right here and the feature the tree's on. That's perfectly flat and cut around terraced. But this right here is a river terrace. This is a river terrace. A terrace is supposed to be flat, but you can still see the cliff and terrace step sequence, right? So maybe sometimes, like in this case, it's easier to count the cliffs than it is to count the terraces. But 1 cliff, 2 cliff, 3 cliff. Okay. All right, so that's my 2 cents on that. I'm going to go a little bit away from the mountain range of topic just to show you how vast all of these features are. Oh boy, it's a big cataract here. And when you can find the bigger the cat, it's easier to find bigger cataracts in more shallow areas, particularly the coastline. So here it's more shallow, 6 miles wide. Let's go over here. This spot's fantastic, you guys. Fantastic. All cataract out. Not decked out, but cataract out. Look at this. And now we come to find, now we're basically looking at mesas, right? Just like you go to the mesas by Butte National Monument, you're going to find, look at it from an aerial view, you're going to find cataracts too. Curving river paths. Okay, now you guys stuck around, so I'm going to have to explain that feature you were talking about, I was talking about later. After I explain this one right here, and just how flat that is. Really flat terrace here, but it's a completely different level than this terrace. Okay, the feature I'm going to talk about is current ruts. So I'm going to switch to my current rut pins. So what are these things I call current ruts? Well, you could probably guess how they formed from a water current in my opinion, but don't take my word for it because I could be wrong. Let's see if these ruts line up with the cataract and ravine features. They absolutely do. Okay. Features line up. So that's our first thing to say. Maybe these are from a water current. First suggestion of indication. Let's go here. We see a lot of ruts. We also see ruts this direction. So that's a common feature when you find this type of rutted out terrain, whether you're in Australia or anywhere. There's many different directions and they intersect. And there's even terraces within these. I think, is this a good one? Yeah, this is a good one. Very, very directional. Look at how these were cut. Who cut them? How'd they get cut? Is it tectonics? Is it something else? Are they kind of like fins? You know, the fins of Utah and Arizona? Or maybe they're something else. Let's go one more spot and then I'll show you how you can find them in Washington. This spot's cool here because you got the ruts. Oh yeah, look at that. I don't know, it looks like they might have something to do with a river. I'm actually going to pin this one because that's pretty fabulous. Because it's really looking like a river there. And then they just cut across. They charge across the landscape. They're very rude to the surface of the rock. And this is a cool spot because it's fully cataract out, little mesas left, and it's got current ruts coming across it. Okay, I guess I'll do this side by side, okay? This right here is just like, okay, we're in the Washington Scablands. It's just like this here. So we know the Washington Scablands had crazy water flow. We're right next to a river with, terraces all the way up to the summit. As far as land goes in elevation, there's terraces on it. Terraced all the way up. And then we also find these ruts. These are called river ruts, aka current ruts. You can find them on the bottom of rivers if you go to certain river spots. And they're correlated with mounds, just like we find on the cataracts, which indicates, again, you know, sheet water flow, because it took sheet water flow to make those cataracts. Yeah, look at all the mounds. Good spot here. Okay, so now, whoops, I'm losing track. Now you see how these are current ruts, okay? Now, what should I mention next? How about the Palakad Gap? Now, I'm not here for my pronunciation, but my understanding of erosion, but I'm pretty sure you would call this the Palakad Gap. Right through the Ghats mountains, and I'm probably not even pronouncing that right. I heard a guy pronounce it kind of like Gat, so I'm running with it. But this is an interesting gap here. It's noted for its clear, it's just clearly being a gap, really. People talk about how it's a nice gap. And it separates the mountain ranges from the central range to the southern range. So it's divided by a gap. Now, how did this gap form? Gosh, that's interesting. Well, you know the erosion of the Ghats and how it's got a lot to do with water. Could this straight edge here possibly be the edge of a river? Could this be a riverbank? Well, if it was, that'd make a 21-mile wide river valley. Now, that'd be pretty crazy. So we may consider it. Let's see if there's any features to make us, think that to make us entertain that theory. Well, this is an incredibly terraced landscape here. You see how flat this whole thing is? It's all a flat valley. Now, when we find super flat terrain, right? For example, this is China. And we see big old river terraces. The river was once, now I'm in feet. Go to miles. 6 miles wide. And then we can go use this as a bank. Oh, and then the river was also once, 18 miles wide. And then we can go out one more. Oh my gosh, this was also the bank. This is also a scour. Now we're dealing with a 56-mile wide river valley. Okay, so China's got, in my opinion, one of the best river terraces in the world around the Yellow River and a few other rivers. But there's just so much detail in these terraces because it's so perfectly flat. And you can go here and see all these steps, right? Every time this tells us exact information on the width it once was. And that's just worth so much information because it's showing us a decrease, which is very interesting. So, again, right here. So I just wanted to show you this so you know that you can easily find megascale rivers all over the world. But I'm just using one location here for this video as an explanation. And the reason why it's a great explanation is because this right here, you see how flat this is? This was flattened out because of the water current that flowed over it, smoothed it out, planed it out. Therefore, this right here is showing a river width as well. 92 miles wide. We can go, maybe just zoom in on these massive sediment lobes since we're here. Oh yeah. Maybe just look at these ripples here that are, I'm just trying to give you guys the full picture, right? Over 2 miles in wavelength, these ripples. And they're corrugated too, because there's lakes in here. These were all dug out as a trough. So it's not just a ripple was made, but this was also excavated and dug underground so that it's now a lake. So it's some serious erosion. Just giving you the full picture. That's what I'm trying to do by zooming out on satellite imagery. That's the biggest benefit of satellite imagery is you can really get the full picture. All right, let's go back to this. And maybe the fact that this is so flat, maybe that might convince you that the Palakad Gap was once from a river, okay? And look at this here, find a nice straight river. How is it so straight? Well, it was on a mission. Didn't have any time to meander, it was going somewhere. So straight rivers can be a feature of high-speed water flow. And then this right here, let's check out this guy. It's a cataract 2.3, so it's completely on a different level than the Washington cataracts. Okay. Now I explained to you a lot, and I explained to you traps and how traps are from the reason why traps are steps isn't because of the way the lava was laid down, and it isn't because of differential erosion from the lava being laid down, but rather it's river terraces, and they're very catastrophic. And there's many features that are indicating this. We got the current ruts. I showed you the potholes, showed you the ravines. I've showed you the cataracts. I've showed you the wide rivers. Actually, I haven't really showed you the wide rivers yet. How about this guy here? 25 miles wide. That's a real nice, clean river channel that expands. And I measured the narrow point, so I'm being conservative with the estimate. And then right next